you, Lord Jesus Christ. It is not the will of my Father who is in heaven that one of these little ones should perish. Some years ago, when Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister in Britain, she came out with rather a puzzling phrase which caused some quibbling. It was, "There is no such thing as society." Now, out of that strange word, much ink flowed, and it does seem bizarre, but if one looks at what she was actually trying to say, it contains a profound truth, and it corresponds exactly to this gospel, that whereas the Lord might be thought to be thinking of huge flocks, it is actually the sheep that he sees, each individual gem of a soul for which he would have come uniquely and solely. One soul was enough to demand Calvary, and it is the same object that is requested on our part. We are often tempted to say, oh, that is, for instance, of the travelling community, that is such and such a category, or even that is a Protestant, whatever it might be with regard to the label. But the Lord sees the soul, the beauty of the soul, its potentiality. And I am reminded of when a student in Rome, we were surrounded by little people of a different order, precisely the kind that would be daubed and labelled. We were living in a red light area, an area of posh prostitution, high class, with big cars drawing up, usually married men, young girls who therefore could be quite choosy when to accept and not to accept, big money passing, half an hour was the turnover, and so on. A ghastly business. But it's linked also with the first reading, on which I would like to pause. Watchman, what of the night? Watchman, what of the night? Lord, in his providence, has put us at the beginning of another night. We're tempted to say, big deal, another night. But what will happen in the course of this night? How many, for instance, of those young, poor souls who give themselves, body and in a sense soul, to other people for money in many parts of the world, are actually about to start on their night career, all night, in dark. And one morning we discovered that one of these, a young one of 32, a Colombian, was dead, and one wondered why. The next day one found a bouquet of flowers by where she had been found dead. A dark, dark world. But that was too a soul, a gem of a soul. At 32 went into eternity. We don't know who pushed her into that. We don't know the background. And we do know that the Lord knows and cares. With regard to the night, we know also something else. We know from exorcists that as we have the hour of mercy, that we venerate the cross and passion from midday to 3 or thereabouts, mentally at least, so too Satan does the same in reverse. Indeed, much of the Church's worship has its reverse in satanic cult. And from 12 to 3 at night is the time when Satanists do their thing. It is particularly strong in certain times of the year, but if one talks to certain privileged souls, one finds a common pattern emerging. Quite a few are woken up around that time, and they cannot sleep and ask themselves why. It is probably their guardian angel or the Lord himself intervening, asking for victim souls, and a counterweight against this dark by having beacons lit, and we can be those beacons. Hence the insistence of having, even in this hermitage, that happening pretty well every night, that there should be a beacon lit. And if in many monasteries, many religious houses, there's been a tendency in the last 40 years to pull back, always the moment of rising, it is a great victory for someone else, because in practice what happens, the hours lost are not regained. They are regained often by another victory. On the contrary, the goggle box, even in monasteries, and the evening is taken up, not by adoration, not by a counterbalance at all, but by more of the same thing. And that if we as people orientated to gratuitous victimhood do not do our thing, the whole mystical body is missing energy, and the voltage is not given. Therefore the devil is more free again. In your case, if the Lord has given pain, if the Lord has given handicap, if the Lord has given whatever it may be which is against our will, as St. Augustine says, where there is least of our own will, there is most of God's, and in our weak limbs he can reign, because he extends to us that possibility which he no longer has, and he asks for the loan of our limbs, so that he may suffer again. That is victimhood. Here I am, Lord, I place myself on the cross. Suffer in me, use me, I abdicate in my will.